right, so we're talking about Clueless. When was the last time you watched this movie?
Oh man, that must have been. It must have been when I was in high school. I feel like it came on one of those like what, TBS or something. Probably.
Yeah.
And I just happened to see that it was on. I kind of looked left and right, and I was like, I'm watching this. Like, if anything,
right?
for the sake of nostalgia, I'm getting into this, man. Yeah.
And sometimes with those movies, you're just like, I just have to watch it to like understand like the zeitgeist. You know what I mean? And just like.
Yeah, and now I feel like I got it a lot better. There are so many small references that totally land now that I never really paid attention to.
It's like, I mean, the nostalgia factor is pretty high for like, I mean, I guess I had seen this like, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. I mean, it's one of those movies that like you say that you've seen before, but like you've never actually like sat down and watched it for like what it,
right?
Like, oh, you're like, oh yeah, I know all the beats. It's Alicia Silverstone, and she was in the Aerosmith videos, and she's popular in high school. You know what I mean? But then like watching it, I was like, oh man, this is like really great. Like the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones cameo in there was great.
I know. I was gonna ask you. I was like, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Dude!
Whoa, my gosh! That's back
so
when
good.
like ska was like, like.
Oh man,
it was there. Like, it was in full force. Like
when we were in high school, man, it was all about Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
It was about those
Big Bad Voodoo
with
Daddy,
the super high socks, man.
Oh my god,
the knee socks, man.
Jesus, what did we do in high school? Why did we do that?
Whatever
stuff?
we wanted.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, mostly for worse.
But how good is the music in this? Like,
dude,
everything is like a hit.
I immediately went to Amazon to look for the soundtrack, and
dude, it's so good.
Yeah,
it's like super well done. Like, I think it just like perfectly captures the '90s. It's just like here it is. It just works.
I feel like and Empire Records capture the soundtrack for the '90s. Yeah.
Oh my god, we have to do Empire Records.
I know.
At some point.
Yes.
That's gonna be good.
Yes, please.
And we really should do Can't Hardly Wait. I think those are good like high school experience, and like to see how they hold up and stuff. I think that'd be interesting to do.
Yeah. And there's something about high school movies that sort of, I don't know. It's always there's something so personable about them.
Yeah.
That even like, have you seen Perks of a Wallflower?
No, I heard it's great.
Oh,
though.
dude, you need to watch that. Yeah, I mean, I watched it because Emma Watson is in it.
And you got a super crush because she's great.
Because she's got her going on. But alongside that, it turned out to be it turned out to be a very like heartwarming, like coming of age kind of like high school movie where it ends with like, man, and now we're going off to college. It has like the narration, like, and
that's cool.
And it's like. And you want to pin it as cheesy, but it's not. It's just honest, because that's how you thought when you were that age. Like, it gets away with all that stuff, and you're totally sucked into it. And I think a lot of high school movies, like, there's something about high school movies that do that really well.
Yeah, it just like captures it, and it really like taps into that. Like, I'm trying to think of like, oh, you know what? Like, I was going through this really bad breakup, and like I remember watching High Fidelity and just being like, this is the perfect movie to watch for what I'm going through right now. And then like I watched that a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, it really did like capture what it's like to like break up and like all this crap that you deal with. But when you can find a movie that gets that, it's so nice. And like I feel like I guess like Can't Hardly Wait has that like
it does
senior year vibe to it that you can be like, oh, I remember feeling like that like
even though I wasn't invited to parties, it was still related.
Like, no, dude, I've never been to a party that looked like a high school party.
That
or like a frat house party or anything like that. Jesus. Okay, so I was thinking about the context of this movie, and there's a lot of jokes about like cell phones in there, right? So like I guess it's like 95, like cell phones are like starting to become accepted, but like I feel like there's a lot of jokes that like, and I feel like they were jokes, so they're portraying them to be like so ridiculous, right? It's just like, oh my god, can you believe each one of them has a cell phone at dinner, and then one rings and they all think it's like a thing, and like I'm sure like that was like super hilarious, but I was just like, wow, yeah, it's like that was the time when like that was like kind of happening,
right?
And
they were
getting
like,
to that point,
it was supposed to be like, whoa, they're so rich.
Yeah,
you know
and
what I
like
mean?
Like how ridiculous! Like there's that part, and then there's a part where Alicia Silverstone's walking down the hallway on the cell phone. And she's talking to Dion, and like then Dion comes in
And
the
they're right
frame,
next to each other.
and they're right next to each
Yeah.
other. And like I was like, oh, that's a joke that plays really well. Like I'm sure it killed back in the day. Where like, oh my god, can you believe they're talking on cell phones and they're like 100 feet away from each other? And then like how do you feel like now? Like I feel like those were like jokes and stuff, but like now
it's reality, dude.
Yeah, that's is it still ridiculous? Like, are those things still ridiculous? Like,
Not even. I've totally been at dinner tables where like all 4 phones ring.
yeah,
or
checks.
I'm at the dinner table and like I try to be. I mean, I try, to be intentional about like, all right, we're out.
Yeah,
we're with people. There's absolutely nothing that urgent unless someone like is going to the hospital.
Right,
and, like,
right.
3 of my friends, like they're all like on their phones, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, guys.
Yeah, like enjoy the moment. Yeah, like we were at MagFest when we were at MagFest, not this past year, but the year before. We would just be like, all right, everybody, phones in the middle of the table. Whoever grabs their phone first pays.
Right.
But like, nobody
yeah.
paid. But like, it's the kind of the world we live in now, where it, like in '95, 20 years ago in '95, that was kind of like, oh my god, can you imagine? They were like caricatures of like what life could be like, or like what people act like
all the time.
Oh, dude, seriously, it's so crazy.
Now we are, and it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, right? So you went to high school on the East Coast like I did.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So I'm wondering how like the West Coastness of the movie kind of hit you. Like
I kept asking myself, how real is this? Because the more, lately, especially through like YouTube and stuff, I'm meeting a lot more people from California.
Right.
And like, I'm definitely seeing like the cultural differences.
Yeah.
Like in conversations, the way people refer to the things that they do or themselves or like their circumstance, like, and a lot, I guess, I don't think that, I'd hate to think that I am like prematurely typecasting. I don't think that, by no means do I think that Clueless captures the reality of like
of every West Coast person being like that.
Person, right? But I find these certain things that either I hear from the grapevine or like things that I see in movies and TV shows, like they actually kind of ring true about like the California vibe and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, so it has me wondering when I watched it. It kind of had me wondering, like, how much of this is real? Like, how much of this sort of rings to, like, I tend to think East Coasters are a lot more, like, as far as, like, social things go, it's more flat,
Right.
Like, it's more like, I don't care who you are.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
owe me X, or you did X. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I have the perfect, if I can take a little bit of a tangent.
Sure, please do.
I have a little bit of an example, like, for example, and this is one thing that I sort of noticed, and then I was having a conversation with my sister about it, and she confirmed it, and I was like, God damn it, you're right. Like, shopping, the way that shopping works. So, like, the poshest place that you can shop on the East Coast, obviously it's in New York City, it's Fifth Avenue. That whole avenue is filled with like all the names you can't pronounce, right?
Right.
Louis Vuitton and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And like the equivalent in LA is Beverly Hills. But there's a fundamental difference between those two strips of like the poshest places. In New York, first of all, in Beverly Hills, let's start with Beverly Hills, there are lists and there are bodyguards, and there are stores that run on appointments only, and it depends on who you are to really get in. You know what I mean?
Right,
There's restrictions on shopping in a kind of way. You have to be a part of a particular echelon, and people have to know you in order for you to like get things. And when you go there, there's like a personal assistant who will like put things on a rack for you. At least this is from what I understand. Some people may, right? But this is what my sister told me from when she went there. But Fifth Avenue, there are no bodyguards. There is no list. Like,
right.
And there's no one to throw anything on a rack for you. You get it your damn self. Anyone can walk in and out of those stores, and you'll find middle-class people, people who can afford the stuff in the store, people who can't afford the stuff in the store and are just window shopping.
Right,
and I feel like in that way, it's like, that's like shopping is like an interesting example of how like culturally, like one thing is more flat than another. Because if you ever did have something like that in New York, they'd be like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, you.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It would be.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And like, yeah, I guess it's just like a different mindset, I guess, where it's entitlement versus, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Man.
So
like,
in a high school context, I almost want it has me wondering like, are the lines drawn more that way? Because in my high school it wasn't that way. There weren't jocks or anything.
right.
Really.
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of liked a whole bunch of stuff. Like it was like a bunch of people who like sports and video games and whatever.
Right.
And you hung out with the people you hung out with because you had class and you had some jokes and you had class.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't.
I never really noticed like a hard line in the sand where it was like you can't talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, like I think it's just like an East Coast thing. Like those lines are blurry. Like, dude, that shopping example is like perfect because it's not like I don't know, like some goth kid could never like talk to a popular kid or anything like that. You know, it was just like, I don't know. It wasn't a line in the sand that nobody crossed. It was just like, well, we're just here and we're placed in these different groups by ourselves, but like nobody is like building walls or anything. They just exist together. Maybe in the West Coast it's a little more like that, man. I don't know.
Yeah. And for the people on YouTube or iTunes or whatever outlet, if you're from the West Coast and it's different, let us know. Maybe we're wrong.
Dude, totally.
Debunk it in a friendly manner so that we can all learn.
Exactly. So we can all reminisce about high school together in a positive way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are definite differences in just mannerisms and, you know, ways of speaking and, you know, all these different things. Like John's a perfect example. Like I'll say something to John and he just has no clue what I'm talking. He's just like, what? And I'm like, no, man, it's like this. And he just, it's a very like, you know, that's why.
Do you have an example? I unpack things a lot when we talk, and I think maybe it has a little bit to do with that.
No, I do too, man. Like with John especially, I think we just talk faster, and in very like sporadic dots. Oh, sporadic. That's from the movie.
Hope not sporadically.
But like, yeah, like I don't connect my dots. I just like, yeah, it's like this, or here's point C. It doesn't mean that point B is going to like lead to that, but like I think for John, he just has a hard time like putting them together. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a specific example.
I think I have it. Let me see if this text is. We actually. Yeah, I don't know if this works. Yeah, there's things. I explain things. I don't know if it's me. Sometimes I don't know if it's me. I'm not a good communicator, but like
it makes me feel like that too because I'll say something and then he's just like, wait, what? And I'm like, okay, it's like this, and then you have to explain it.
Here's one. I don't know if this works. He was like, oh, dude, next time we should, because we played on a couple days ago. We had a power hour where we just played Counter Strike or whatever, and he was like, next time we should get like 10 people, just play CS:GO and just have a good time or whatever. And I was like, yeah, because for me, like, I never really played too much of Counter Strike in high school or whatever, but I just played it because my friends were playing it. And,
right.
I was like, yeah, after 20 minutes, I get a runner's high out of it, and I have a really good time. Like, you know what I mean, right? Like you play, and then
totally.
You just get in the zone, and it doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. You just play. And he was like, really, a runner's high? What is that? And I was like, I mean, I get into it. Like,
yeah. That's exactly. I'll use an example, and he won't know the reference or. And I guess maybe just having like similar experiences, and I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Yeah. But to that, I went over. My friend Frank had like a Hearthstone party.
Frank.
Yeah, you know Frank.
Dude,
yeah.
A Hearthstone party. That sounds awesome.
Dude, it was great. It was like one of those like fireside things that we did.
Cool.
But it was at his house, and like. For those listening at home, like, you can call me old and call me old-fashioned, and like, but
what are you gonna say?
There's just something I really like about playing games with people in the same room.
Totally agree with you.
It's a connection that like is, I think, lost on this generation.
I agree,
and it makes me sound really old when I say this generation, but
no, but you're right though. Yeah.
Like it's fun to play Hearthstone, it's fun to play against, a random person, it's fun to play against a friend. But when you're in the same room, man, and you're making like jokes and you're like having a good time, like, so Frank hooked up, he has like this like 55-inch television, and like we hooked up a computer to it, and then we're like, oh, we're going to play in the same room, but whoever's playing can't look at the TV. So they had to have their back to the TV. Right, if you're playing against the person playing on the TV,
yeah,
and then we got like really nervous about it. So Frank started taping pieces of paper across the bottom of the screen. So in case anybody looked, you couldn't see the cards and stuff. Yeah. So like it just reminded me of like playing like GoldenEye or something, and you would just like, have like a pizza box in the middle of the screen, or like so you can't look. But like best. It's just like stuff like that is like really great.
Yeah,
and, like
I went to a small at my comic book store. They had like a little Hearthstone competition or whatever. And, like nice. It was just people. It was a whole. They have this big seating area where everyone can just like play or whatever, and people were just playing on their iPads like right in front of each other, like as if it were like magic. And like I remember playing that, and I was like, "This is so much more fun and warm than." I don't know. And you go out meeting someone or whatever.
Yeah, cool. And you can like communicate, like you play against someone and you're just like, oh man, that's a really good combo, and you just say that to yourself. Yeah, and that's it. You can't be like, hey, how did you do that, or like what, how does that work? You can't engage in conversation without, when you're not in the same room. It's nice. It's a really nice feeling. It's just like, and I feel like the movies are the same way. Like people are just so used to watching them alone or like like on a laptop and stuff, but like when you watch, like I love seeing comedies like in the theater. Like it just makes them that much funnier, and I guess I just get like super into it because you're laughing together, you're having this like shared experience together, which is really great. I felt that when I went to see, I forget what movie I went to see, some movie like shoot, I guess that's closer to 4 years ago. I'm starting to lose the sense of how fast time goes. Right? Every year feels like it. The feeling of the last year cut in half. Yeah, anyway. Dude. Like I kept feeling. I was like, oh, we were at like MagFest the other day, and I was like, it was like 8 months ago.
Yeah,
like that's crazy. That's like 200 days like
right
past.
Yeah, how does it feel like that?
Yeah, it's so nuts, man.
Yeah, but I was at the theater. I can't remember. I think I was gonna meet up with someone there, and they couldn't make it. And I was like, I just want to see the movie. So I went. Every time there was a joke, like I would like laugh out loud and like look to my left and right, like out of instinct, because like it's just that's a thing you do. It's just a part of that. And I kept being like, oh, I don't know, y'all. I don't know you guys.
Like, but it's okay because we're laughing at the same thing. So I guess it's okay.
I was like, I'm a loser. All right, whatever.
It's really weird, man. And I wonder, like bringing it back to the movie, like the way the cell phones are used in the movie, like probably seemed ridiculous back in the day, but now are just like a commonplace at this point. And we were talking about like the West Coast like high school experience. There's like one shot in particular that sums up the whole thing for me. There's a shot of like Cher's class, and there's a girl who has like a nose job bandage on her face, and she's using like her cell phone antenna to like scratch underneath it. And I was just like, what? I guess that's the West Coast high school thing. Like I guess that's girls just get nose jobs in high school.
Right.
And like maybe that's a caricature of that, but for me it was like, I guess that's commonplace enough to happen to like put it in a movie.
Yeah, as like an extra thing.
Yeah. That's really strange.
That is interesting. Yeah, I do wonder if it's just I started piecing it together in my mind. Is it like because they're so close to like Hollywood, maybe? Like there are a lot of aspiring actors and actresses who maybe want to go into the field at a young age, so because of that, like things like getting plastic surgery or whatever are like a little more common.
Yeah, I guess. And I wonder if that's like it was like the same thing with like the cell phones, like, oh, it's so ridiculous and over the top, but like I think there were a couple girls in my high school that got breast implants. I mean, I don't know if that's just crazy rumor, but like that's what I heard, and like that's what I saw, so I you know what I mean? But like I don't know if they just like sprouted over the summer, but rumors are crazy. But like if the cell phones 20 years ago in that movie were like anything like the plastic surgery that it was in the movie, like I'm sure nowadays it's much more common that things like that happen.
Yeah,
it's weird, man. So what was your overall revisiting this movie that we had seen years ago, like what was like your like final experience like?
Overall, it was so it had strong nostalgic value.
Yeah.
Man, in a way very different than other things, I think. just because like I even remember like jokes that my sister and I would have from things like that, like jokes with family and friends, and definitely like when you're young, like I wouldn't say I was like raised by the television or raised by movies. Like I had great parents and I loved my upbringing, and like I went outside and stuff, but like but definitely I think with that said, like watching TV and films like when I was younger, they were definitely, I definitely view them in some capacity as like a window to reality, almost like there was something in them, like there had to be something in the characters that reflected like truth about the world and things like that. So you know, when people act a certain ways, I was like, I guess that's just how people are. I guess people just have parties like that. I guess this is just how people have relationships, and these are things that they struggle with, even if I had a really like poor understanding of what it was. That long-winded, that kind of played into like that like nostalgic value. Alongside that, it was there was a lot more that landed, like a lot more nuanced things and small things that landed. Like for example, even things like Cher pronouncing Haitians Haitians.
Haitians, yeah.
It's pretty funny.
It's really funny. I was reading on IMDb, like Alicia Silverstone, when she was 17 when they cast her in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that, some age like that. And she did a reading for the director and said it like that, and the director was like, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, it wasn't written like that, but we need to have it do that. So when they were filming it, like the director pulled everybody aside and was just like, look, she's going to say it like this. Nobody correct her. Right? And she just read it like that, like the Haitians. It's perfect.
That's
it's just so...
And like
it's so good.
And when she dates the gay guy, and he gets in her she gets in his car, and he's like, do you like Billie Holiday? And she's like, I love him.
Dude, I laughed. I was like, that's great. That's so good.
That was so good.
It's throwaway joke.
Yeah, I know. That was gold. Like that.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And like some of it was like so over the top, like when he was like, "Oh, do you want to practice parking?" And she's like, "Why? Everywhere has valet." And I was like,
"Yeah,
that's
all
probably
the stuff
a valid
like contextualized,
concern,
yeah, so well."
Yeah.
So those things landed, and then I thought it was great. My overall impression was that it was much more multidimensional than a lot of high school films. At first glance, like you said, like I tend to categorize it as just like, oh, it was just one of the first ones, but actually. It was special because it did have substance, and it did have like, it had something for people who weren't in high school. I think that's the big difference.
Right.
Like high school films nowadays are geared towards high school kids, and the way that it's written, the jokes, the conversation, they all sort of cater to maybe like a general like high school level intellect, like the greatest common denominator.
Yeah.
But Clueless, I mean, I don't want to say Clueless was her. You know what I mean? No. Right now, it sounded like I'm putting it on this huge pedestal. I don't want to do that either.
No.
But I feel like if I were in college and I watched it, I'd be able to laugh. Right now, I watched it and I was like, "Ha, that's some cool stuff." Like,
there's some good stuff in there, and I think, if, like you're saying, if you take it at face value, it's just it's simple. You know what I mean? But if you like look into it just a little bit more, you're like, this is actually like a pretty smart movie. Like, you know, I think everybody got wrapped up in like the whatever and as like the catchphrases of the movie, and then like those were like, oh my god, she says as if, it's so funny. But like there's a lot of really good jokes in it that are really, really smart and like really well done and well executed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think like revisiting it, I was just like, my wife has this tendency to like watch the same movies over and over again, like Mean Girls, Bridesmaids,
cool,
Dude, any movie just over and over. And like Clueless is one of them. She's like, I'm so excited that you and Satchell are doing Clueless. She's like, it's such a good movie. And I was like, yeah, it's gonna be really funny. It's gonna be fun. She's like, no, but it's like really, really good. And I was like, yeah, I know, that's why we're doing it. And then like I was like, all right, you're right. It's really, really good movie.
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, it has like its schmaltzy moments, you know, like when like the teachers get married at the end, but like it's cute and funny. It's a good way to wrap it up and stuff. It's pretty well done. But I think it really does like give like a nice little peek into like high school and like the mindset at that time.
Yeah.
You know, like even like, you know, her stepbrother, Paul Rudd's just trying to be like, oh, there's all this serious stuff going on. And she's like, yeah, that's great. But like, this is my world right now.
Right.
And like, we can get to that world later on, but this is what I'm dealing with. So that was like a nice little like.
Yeah. I also love that they didn't make everything so obvious, if that makes any sense. Like,
no,
like
yeah,
things
definitely.
like Claire, like for example, like things like, I keep saying Claire, things like Cher, cool. Things like Cher finally accepting Travis, like they could have blown that up. Like they could have had this whole like, I don't know, like this montage where she like unpacks it for the viewer so that they understand the change of heart that they had. But instead, like they respected the intellect of the viewer enough to kind of see like where it clicked. Like Cher started to see that giving to other people was really important. You know what I mean?
Right.
And she genuinely got into it, and she genuinely turned things around. And through the acceptance of like through adopting selflessness, she was able to accept more people, and it made sense at the end when everything just sort of like wrapped up and was happily ever after. You know what I mean? There was no explaining to be done because the things that happened in the movie were like sufficient. You know? Yeah,
totally, man. It just worked perfectly. And you're right, like she grows throughout this whole thing. Like they could have easily portrayed her as just like one-sided and just like, this is her, this is how she's gonna be throughout the entire movie, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. But like, she grows, she has these experiences, she has these very personal growth moments that like there's a point where she's like, wow, my friends are not good people right now. You know, like they're talking about these things that I'm not interested in. You know, they're talking about sex, and they're
talking about sex
like,
and all that. And she felt
and they're you know, all of a sudden you could boil it down to like, oh my God, they're more popular than she is. And I think Cher says that at one point.
Right,
but then
she's jealous of Amber, or wants to confront her. Yeah,
and she like internalizes all this stuff and kind of like self-reflects, and is just like, and it's great that they had like her having narration into it. Really gave like a sense of like in her head, which was really nice, you know, like what she's thinking. So then she has this moment where she like reevaluates everything, and then she's walking by that fountain and like it turns on.
Right?
I was like,
that was great.
I was like, that's kind of corny. I was like, but that's like that's really nice. That's a nice like visual moment to like to show a realization, you know. I think it worked out really nicely. But yeah, man, I really like this movie.
I agree. I didn't think that. I thought that. I don't know what I thought we'd do. I thought we might tear it up.
Yeah.
But
you know what? I thought so too. I was like, I don't know. I think we're just gonna have like.
Right. I thought there'd be a lot to riff on. Yeah.
But it's like, I think when we like analyzed it a little bit more, you're like, oh, there's a little more like underneath the surface, which is kind of nice. And I think that's what, like, if more people would do that with more movies, I think they would have a better experience watching them and be like, you know, we could take it at face value and just like dismiss it. But like, if you're like, all right, well, let's accept it for what it is and maybe try and get more out of it, I think the world might be a better place, Satchel.
Yes. Clueless, improving the world.
98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know what it.
I don't even know what it is. I'm kind of curious to know.
Yeah, let me look and see. Let me see. It's got to be pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like just because of its legacy, it probably scored pretty well.
And like, speaking of legacy, like everybody in this movie is like somebody now. You know what I mean? Like, how crazy is that? They picked like all these
Alicia
young rising
doing
stars.
Now?
She was on a couple shows recently. I don't know what. 81%, not bad.
Okay,
yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, man. But yeah, a lot of fun watching Clueless and like revisiting that.
Yeah,
good stuff.
That's good stuff.
All right, well, please join us again next time for Cinephilia Anonymous, where we take you on an interstellar adventure through the darkest corners of your mind to unlock your hidden passion for cinema.
I hope you're doing things with your hands, because I am.
No, but I am. Space. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching, guys, and listening. Be good.